Hello everyone and welcome to the most requested game from day one of the World Rapid Championship. It's Linear Dominguez versus Anish Giri. It's a game from round 5 and it's a long theoretical struggle which makes this video even more interesting because I think there are maybe a few players who prepare for a chess game better than Anish Giri. He's just a master of opening preparation. That's why I think you're really going to enjoy this game. So without further ado, let's check it out as day 2 is about to start. So we want to check at least this one before we get to that. So Dominguez with the white pieces opens with e4. Anish goes for the Sicilian defense. We have c5, knight f3, d6, and d4. So everything, standard stuff. Knight f6, knight to c3, and the Najdorf variation is on the board. We have bishop to e3, the so-called English attack against the Najdorf. We have e5 and the knight back to b3. Bishop to e6 and now f3, strengthening the center. And here moves like bishop e7, knight bd7 are the most usual moves played here, but Giri goes for h5. And Giri is following the game Dominguez already played against Etienne Bacrot in 2014, which Dominguez won. And it's going to be very exciting stuff when we get to the turning point. We have knight d5, Dominguez threatening knight bishop to b6, followed by knight to c7 check, which would win material, so you have to react to this. Bishop captures, e captures, and now knight bd7. We have queen d2. Dominguez prepares to castle queenside, and g6 by Giri. We have castles queenside, bishop to g7, and now you don't want your king and queen on this same diagonal, so king to b1, just a much better, much more safe square for the king. We have queen to c7, just usual developing square for the queen. The rook is coming to c8. We have bishop to e2, Dominguez prepares g4, and now Giri castles. We have g4, and now rook f to c8. So still following the game Dominguez versus Bacrot from 2014. We have rook to c1, you don't want your queen stuck here guarding the c2 pawn, and now h captures on g4. We have f captures on g4 and now a5. We have g5, and this is where we reach the turning point. In 2014, Etienne Bacrot played knight to e4 and he lost that game. But here, Giri replies with the strongest move recommended by the engine, which is a4. So it is as of move 18 that we have a completely new game. So let's see how Dominguez faces this a4 threat. So he goes g captures on f6, and of course it is the best idea. You don't have time to capture the knight because after c captures you open up an attack on the queen, and also you will just lose a piece here. So first knight captures on f6, and this is where it starts to get interesting. Here Giri is down a piece, and well, Dominguez can just move back the knight. He can go knight to a1. This is one of the strongest moves recommended by the engine, so probably this is what Giri had planned for, that Dominguez will try and save the knight, and then the game continues with the moves like knight to e4 or a3, but it's black's down a piece, but black is on the attack. However, Dominguez after knight captures on f6 just continues the attack with h4, and he gives back the piece. And okay, Giri accepts the piece. We have c captures on b3, opening up an attack towards the queen, so queen to d7, and now rook f to rook c to f1, avoiding the rook trade and shifting the rooks over to the king side. We have knight to e4, attacking the queen, queen to e1, and now queen back to c7, with ideas of, well, either queen to c2 check. You can also bring the queen to a5 if the white queen moves. But bishop to d3, not allowing this queen to c2 idea. We have knight to c5, threatening the light square bishop, but here Dominguez just captures it. Bishop captures, queen captures, and now queen to e4. And already a lot of tricks lurk in the position, like h5 is coming, maybe even rook captures on f7 is an idea, followed by queen captures on g6. Of course, Giri is not interested in finding out, and both of them are very low on time. Here, Giri pushes f5, kicks back the queen, and here Dominguez could go back with the queen, but instead he sacrifices the rook. We reach the position from the thumbnail. He plays rook captures on f5, and this is the critical point of the game. Feel free to pause the video and try to find the best defensive move for Giri while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on not grabbing the rook right away. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's a counter sacrifice. Rook captures on a2. Point being that if you capture, well, then it's just a beautiful, beautiful line. You get captures on f5, and now it doesn't matter if you move the queen or you capture on f5. It's besides the point. You should play queen c4 and hope for a queen trade here, because if you don't, then you get rook a8 check, king b1, and now e4. You open up the bishop's diagonal and prevent queen to h7 check. So bishop captures, and now, of course, you will see it. It's rook to a1 check. You sacrifice another rook. King captures, queen a3 check. The pawn is pinned. You cannot capture. King has to move, and queen b2 is mate. So this is what happens if after rook captures you capture it. However, the best for white is to go rook to f8 check, yet another counter sacrifice. Rook captures. Basically, you don't want g captures on f5 to kick away the queen from e4, so black has this freeing e4 move. You don't want the dragon to awaken. Rook captures on f8, and only now king captures on a2. And now the game continues. This is what Giri should have done. However, Giri captured it right away. He thought, okay, we're going to kick away the queen, then we push e4, we free the dragon, but queen captures on f5. Now, you don't have all that much time to waste here. We have rook to c7, adding a rook to help out with the defense, but now not queen h7, but rather rook to f1, preventing the king from escaping after queen to h7. Now, this is the threat of checkmate. Bishop to f8, and now queen g6 check. Here we have a repetition for a few moves. King h8, queen h5 check, king to g8, and now bishop to f5 is really strong, threatening bishop e6, but you kind of have to calculate bishop f5, queen captures on d5, queen g6 check first to gain control of e6, and both of them are very low on time. So here, queen g6 check again, king h8, and now rook g1, threatening queen h5 check, rook to h7, and queen h7 mate. So there's only one good way for Giri to prevent mate, and that is to give up the queen, which is what Giri does. Queen captures on g1, queen captures, and bishop to h6 now, threatening to win back the queen with rook to c1. And here Dominguez blocks it with bishop to c4, and it's a really good block, because if b5 works, then this doesn't work, but b5 is a very exciting move. So of course you cannot move. If you move, then of course you can equalize. The problem is you have queen to g6. You threaten to capture the bishop. After bishop moves to f4, you have queen to f6 check, king moves, and now queen captures on d6, attacking the rook. Rook defends rook. Again, you're asking, what do you want to do with the bishop? If you move it, it's still mate. So queen to e6 check, king to h8, and now d6. You threaten the rook. And now after the rook moves d7, and now white wins. So this is, if captures, you just bring a queen into the game, and there's nothing left to do here. So fortunately, b5 doesn't work. There is the bishop c4 move. We have queen to bishop c4. We have rook to g8 now, attacking the queen, and now queen to b6, attacking the rook. Rook to d7, and now bishop to b5, pushing the rook further back. We have rook d to g7 now, and finally a4, a freeing move with the king. We have rook to g6, defending this pawn. That's, well, better to defend this guy than this guy. We have bishop back to d3, attacking the rook, and now rook to f6. And only now queen captures on b7. We have bishop to g7. Now Giri's plan is to push e4, free the bishop, and then create some threats along the second rank against the white king. We have queen to b4 now. So if the pawn is captured, you can capture with the queen, also maybe threaten mate. We have rook to f4, first pushing the queen back. Queen captures on d6 now, and now rook captures on h4. We have queen to e7, preparing to start pushing the passed pawn, but now rook h1 check. King to a2, and now e4. Now the bishop is free, and here Giri will try to create some threats against the white king. We have queen captures on e4, and now rook to h2. So how do you stop rook captures on b2? Well, bishop to c2. And this is, again, where things get really interesting. Rook to c8, attacking the bishop twice. So again, you can't really move it. King to b1, defending it, and this is as good a chance as Giri is going to get. If he doesn't capture on c2, he can just resign. There's no more playing this game. White can just push the passed pawns, and it's game over. So here, Giri captures it, rook captures, queen captures, rook captures, and king captures. So it's a bishop against 4 pawns, but now it's a race. And let's see who's faster. King g8, we have king d3. king to f8, we have a5 now, bishop to e5, preparing to create a blockade on a7, we have king to c4, and now king to e7, we have a6, and then now, of course, bishop to b8, you cannot allow a7, king to c5, we have king to d7 and king to b6, and it was in this position on move 55 that Anish Giri resigned the game. And a brilliant victory for Linear Dominguez in round 5 of the World Rapid Championship 2019. Whatever black does, next move a7 is coming. You give up the bishop for the pawn, and then, well, you don't have enough kings to stop all the pawns. So it's fairly simple. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Oliver Birch, Hartmut Gekkeler, Anas Kaisoni, Peter Ernstrom, and Robert Kert for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. For the next few days, we are continuing the coverage of the World Rapid and Blitz Championship. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.